What's going on, everybody? This is Paul, your hip hop relationship and recovery coach, coming to you yet again with another episode of You Guessed It, You Guessed It, You Guessed It. Kick your butt out. Today, I want to talk to you all about recovery or lack of recovery because I found out a whole lot of things that pertains to both of those statements. And with that, I've decided to title today's episode, But That's Not Acceptable. So I'm asking for your ears and your hearts to be open to this information because it is really important for all of us who are in recovery. And I want to say this just because you have not had issues with any substances or vices or anything, it doesn't necessarily mean that you don't need recovery. I want you to understand that. And so, again, I've titled today's episode, But That's Not Acceptable. Um, and I want to say this as always, as always, as always, if you're looking for a but, it's going to always be easy to find one. I'm going to say this again. If you're looking for a but, it's going to always be easy to find one. So, without further ado, let me get into this content because this content is yes. Let me say it like that. So when I think about recovery, I understand why one of the ways many of us struggle to obtain recovery and or maintain a life in recovery, the life of recovery that we see and want for ourselves. I understand some of the ways that many of us struggle with that. And let me explain it why. Um, when I first started my recovery journey, for the first 3 years, part of that journey had led me to go and attend AA. Now, I've never had any issues with alcohol or drinks in no shape, form, or fashion. As you all know, my drug of choice was heroin, and I snorted heroin for 30 years. So I never had any issues with alcohol or beer or none of that kind of stuff. However, I ended up in AA and I stayed there because it worked for me. And so I appreciate AA and some of the things that it had given me in terms of my recovery and my freedom. Here's one of the things that um, I started to see as I was a part of this particular, because I was part of a particular home. I had a home group, as they call it, and I was in this home group for, like I said, the first 3 years of my recovery. And so when we would be in our meetings or groups, and we would talk about when it became our turn to talk, and we would talk about whatever it is that we talked about. I was never shy about letting everybody know that, hey, my drug of choice was heroin. Um, and so I noticed that um, as time went on, there were lots of situations or times when it get to other people in the circle or in the group that would talk about their experiences, even though they identified as people with alcohol problems or AA, lots of them started to talk about the issues that they had with substances, whether it was legal or illegal drugs, prescribed drugs, or drugs that they bought off the street. And I thought that that was very interesting that many of them always identified with AA as an AA person and not identifying as an AA and an NA or narcotics uh, anonymous person or a person who had issues with not only alcohol but drugs as well. And so as I was listening to lots of them start to talk about the substance use issues that they had, Um, I noticed that lots of them, it was a few of them in this particular group that started to disappear. And, we obviously, we had built these relationships and these friendships and these alliances where we had each other's information and we started, and when we didn't see a certain person or certain people for a while, we started to reach out and ask, is everything okay? How you doing? Or did you decide to go somewhere else? Or whatever the case may be. And I found out that many of those people who started to disappear went back to, not even went back because they never stopped, uh, got deeper in darkness as it related to the substance use, the drugs, whether it was prescription drugs or street drugs. They got deeper into that. And one of the guys I had the opportunity to have a conversation with, and I was just like, why, what happened? Why didn't you identify with the fact that you had issues with substances or with drugs and alcohol so that you could have possibly have gotten the help for that as well. And here's what one of them said to me. Well, in the social circles, the communities that I live in, that's not acceptable. You we can talk about alcohol or alcoholism, but what's not acceptable is talking about having some issues uh, with drugs. So what I'm saying on it to say this: many of them were sitting in those circles dealing with the alcohol part of their issue and hiding the drug part of the issue, or too ashamed to talk about the drug part of the issue for fear of what people was going to say or what people was going to think. Thus, the result was that they were suffering in silence, and many of them ended up in worse situations, way worse situations. I've run across some people who have lost families, who have lost houses, become homeless, lost careers and jobs, many things, and it had nothing to do with the alcohol that they were suffering from, and everything to do with the drug addiction that they had that they never talked about because due to the fact that the social circles that they were in, but that's not acceptable for you to have issues with drugs. Alcohol is the acceptable because it's legal. Drugs are not acceptable because they come from the streets. So you can't talk about that. And again, many of us suffer and end up sometimes losing everything, even our lives, because we are too ashamed or too afraid. But I can't talk about that. I can talk about this, but I can't talk about that because that is not acceptable in my circles. Here's another thing that I learned. As a recovery coach, I've worked with many people over the years of my recovery, and I've come across a few of my ex-clients were men or women of status. What I mean by that is that in their careers or their professional circles, they had status. They were managers, CEOs, CFOs, or whatever you call it. They were owners or the people in the company who make the connections or the business transactions with other businesses. So they had stature and status in their particular profession. Here's a couple of things that was talked about with me as we had our sessions. When in many situations or many occasions, when you are making a business deal with another company or you're trying to gain someone else's business, many times you all will probably meet in a hotel or some type of banquet hall. And in those settings, there would be liquor, there would be alcohol, there would be wine, there would be beer, there would be champagne, things of that nature. And I was told again by some of my clients that when you're in your business circles, whether you're talking with your colleagues or again trying to make a deal or close on a deal, and alcohol is passed around, it's not acceptable for you to say no. They consider it an insult, but that's an insult. If you say no, there's been, they talked about, I know I can't drink because I have an issue with alcohol, yet I had to take this drink because that's not acceptable for not, to tell them no. And here's what the people that were safe enough to talk to me about this said that happened as a result of taking that drink. So because that's not acceptable to not take a drink, they'll do this toast with the person who offered the drink. Now, the person who offered the drink, more often than not, don't have an issue with drugs or alcohol or anything for that matter, right? So they'll toast this person that can't drink or don't supposed to be drinking would have the drink, and then they found themselves sneaking off because what they did was woke up that beast. They awakened that beast inside of them that says that's the beast called alcoholism. They woke it up, and they told me that after they had that drink with that person, oh, I need to go use the bathroom. I'll be back. They snuck off to the other side of the bar or another area where they can access more alcohol or liquor or whatever it is that they was looking for, and they would drink excessively. Go to the bathroom, take a mint, come back. Now they're drunk, and these people don't even know that they woke up a beast inside of this person that is basically trying to kill this person. And because of the fact that that's not acceptable, now this person is ended up because of that. Because again, they woke up the beast, right? So now this person, the rest of the time that this person is there at the meeting, at the hotel, or whatever the case may be, they're drinking, 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 only to end up finding themselves. Someone found them on the floor of the hotel room or on the floor of the bathroom, or by the time they got home, they went right to the liquor store before they got to the house and bought, hiding it because their family already knows that they can't drink. So they stop off at the liquor store, get as much drinks as they possibly can, drink that, come home, act like nothing has ever happened. Again, only for their family to find them the next day or a few days later uh, uh, in this drunken stupor because of that statement, but that's not acceptable. That's what I'm saying. And I have another situation, a situation that I'll talk about as well. Many of us, because of that, but that's not acceptable, are coming to places and positions where we are losing family, wives, children, careers, possessions, and even our lives in the name of pleasing someone else against knowing that we cannot drink or use at all. In the recovery community, they have a cliche that says this: one is too many and 1,000 is not enough. And that means, for you all who don't understand what that means is that one is opening up the door for me to try to do everything I can to get that thousand one, because when I start, I can't stop. And so again, it's dangerous to live by this, by that's not acceptable against your life being put in jeopardy. Here's another situation that instance or yeah, a situation that was sold to me. I had clients mention that, again, now we go into the social circles. Social circles. There are times when people that I've worked with, uh, they have, a bunch of friends that they all get together with, whether it's couples or a bunch of other men or a bunch of other women. They get together on a regular basis, for whatever reason, for whatever social reason, and they go out to dinner or they invite each other to dinner to their houses, and there's drinks involved. There's drinks all over the place. Um, and again, in the name of, but that's not acceptable, the person knowing that they are not supposed, they can't drink, but because of them caring about what their social circles are going to say to them or about them, they ended up drinking anyway. Again, here's the common thing that happened. When they took the first drink, so people won't know that they have a problem with alcohol, they'll sneak off, go to the, hey, I'm going to the bathroom or whatever the case may be, and just pound them down. Take some breath mints or whatever, drink some mouthwash or whatever, and come back like nothing has ever happened. Only to be then awaken that beast and end up now they're at home with their wives and their children, and again having to be found on the floor, having to probably end up in a hospital from alcohol poisoning, having to end up in a hospital because they're going through the DTs, having to end up in a place in a position that they need to go to a detox place to come down because again, once they start or once we start, we can't stop. We stop when it's almost when it's no when we in a place where it's dangerous if we don't stop, if somebody don't stop us, or if we don't get the help that we need. And so in both of those situations, again, in the name of pleasing somebody else, we're putting ourselves in harm's way. And I just want to encourage everybody who are listening to this video or this podcast, whoever you are, whether you are a person has experienced this personally, or whether you know someone who's going through this. In the name of, but that's not acceptable. Stop that. Forget that it's not acceptable with them. What's not acceptable with you or your loved one is that I can't drink. And that's period. I cannot drink and I don't need to be drinking. I'm going to be honest with you about this. And if you can't accept that, then I'm going to have to separate myself from you because my life is more important to me than this business deal. My life is more important to me than this drink or this friendship that you say that we have. Because if you're my friend, you're not going to encourage me to do something that I'm telling you is going to harm me. If you're my friend, I should be able to be honest with you about, but I can't drink. I should be able to be honest with you about that, and you respect that. And so, men and women, again, if you're listening to this podcast, if you know someone who has had an issue or having an issue with these two very subjects that I talked about, reach out to me and let's have some conversation about that. And I'm offering my support to you. If there's anything that I can do to support you, or maybe support your loved one or someone you know who may be going through this, feel free to reach out, comment, post, share, like, subscribe to my page because again, Kick Your Butt Out is about us getting together and supporting one another. Whatever the butt is in our lives that's stopping us from the greatness that's inside of us, stopping us from the maximum potential that's inside of us, stopping us from healing, stopping us from being made whole, stopping us from being well, stopping us from being healthy, and all of these other wonderful things that are a part of who we really are. We need to kick our butt out so that we can do what we need to do to be who we are. With that being said, as usual, If you're looking for a but, it's going to always be easy to find one. This is Paul, your hip hop relationship and recovery coach. Until next time, be well, do the next right thing, and God bless you all. Peace.